Hi, Bill Cullen here, checking in with another edition of Cullen's Adventures. This time dedicated to a quick personality close-up of a ruler whose name may not be too familiar to residents of 49 of the 50 states, but that rings a very loud bell indeed among inhabitants of the state of Hawaii. The name is Kamehameha, King Kamehameha the First, to give him his full title. The first man in history to unite all of the islands under one single ruler. Our program is presented as a special service by this station and is furnished by Grolier Incorporated, publishers of the Book of Knowledge, the foremost children's encyclopedia for more than 50 years. The residents of Hawaii are celebrating to beat the band today, paying tribute to King Kamehameha the First, the 18th century adventurer who, in the years when our colonial forefathers were getting the young nation of the United States into shape, was undertaking a vaguely similar project out in Hawaii. So this is officially Kamehameha Day in those parts, a statewide holiday, an occasion for multitudinous parades, pageants, and luau's, the only state holiday in the United States dedicated to the memory of a king. What better time to embark on a brief investigation of this Hawaiian trailblazer? Well, no better time, obviously. So herewith and to wit are a few appropriate background notes from the special section on Hawaiian history in the Book of Knowledge. As you may or may not know, the first people to settle the Hawaiian Islands more than 1,000 years ago were a group of Polynesians who set forth from their island homes into the wide Pacific and were fortunate enough to find a landing spot. They built settlements on a number of the islands and lived a quiet tribal life, only occasionally interrupted by wars between neighboring chiefs. Well, the first known outsiders to visit the islands arrived in 1778. These 1778 explorers were sailors aboard two ships under the command of the celebrated Captain James Cook. Skipper Cook was greeted by the natives with open arms at first, certain that he was the ancient Polynesian god Lono returning to his people. Then, during a brief misunderstanding on the beach one February day in 1779, he fell out of favor and, together with 4 of his Marines, was assaulted and killed. Many of the islanders later mourned the incident, but not one opportunistic young warrior who had made several exploratory visits aboard the foreign ships. Name? Kamehameha. The Hawaiian carried out a series of wars throughout the islands, which by the turn of the century made him virtual master of all of them. As more and more traders from the outside world stopped to barter and exchange, Kamehameha's power grew stronger and stronger, and he remained in power without a serious contender for some 20 years, until his death in 1819. He was succeeded by his son, Kamehameha II, and the family line continued to rule up until the death of King Kamehameha V in 1872. The 2 kings who followed were elected by the people. Then in 1893 occurred the American-led revolution which brought about the creation of the Republic of Hawaii and led 5 years later to annexation of the islands by the United States. They remained a U.S. territory until achieving statehood in 1959. Well, that appears is all we have time for today on this Brush Up on Hawaiian History session. Before we go, here's an invitation for parents. If you'd like to receive a sampling of some more interesting facts and figures in booklet form, a booklet put together with the youngsters in the family in mind, why don't you let us hear from you? No charge for it. All we need is your name and address on a postcard. Mail it to Cullen's Adventures, Box 3400, Grand Central Station, New York City, and we'll send the booklet right out. I'll be here on this same spot on your dial tomorrow for another edition of Cullen's Adventures, furnished by Grolier Incorporated, publishers of the Book of Knowledge. Hope you'll be here. Thank you and goodbye.